Miss Alexis, welcome to Body Story.
Thank you. So excited to
Oh,
join you for this.
I'm so happy to have you here. We are doing this, so if you can please introduce yourself, where you live, what you do, and what made you say yes when I asked you to be a part of this Body Story project.
Okay, so hello, anyone who might be listening. My name is Alexis Tressler. I live in DC. I now consider myself a resident. This is my home. I've
Mm.
been here for almost 20 years, so I feel like this is like where I'm feeling it. Um, I have I've spent a large portion of my career kind of in the health, fitness, wellness industry. I'll just kind of lump it into that. I used to have my own company managing running events. I also taught yoga for a very long time. And in the last year, I have transitioned and I'm now working doing just random corporate events. So I'm an event producer, but no longer just focused on the wellness industry. Um, and why did I say yes? Hmm.
Yes.
Nobody has ever asked me to do this.
Mm.
And I do find that maybe I have a lot of things that I want to share, or maybe I just have a lot of thoughts that have been living in my head and in my body for decades at this point. Um, that I just feel like, should be shared out or could be useful or helpful to someone else, even if it's just to say, yeah, I had that thought too. I'm glad I'm not
Mm.
alone. So I just feel like so many times I'm grateful for hearing someone else put to words something that has been sitting in my head.
Mm.
So maybe I can put to words something that someone else has been thinking or feeling. So
Oh my gosh, what a wonderful reason to say yes. Woohoo, let's get started.
and my palms are sweating just a little bit,
Oh,
but
we could do a little palm dance. Okay, body story. We live in our bodies. We've lived in them since the moment we came in this earth. They will be with us till the day we die. Where do you want to start, Alexis? Where does your mind go instantly when you think of sharing your body story?
my mind instantly goes to college and, to my early 20s. And I feel like perhaps before that, I was never really, not that I wasn't aware of my body, but I don't think I had a negative thought about my body
Mm,
until I was in my 20s. So
okay.
um,
Wow.
perhaps it starts earlier and it was only my awareness that happened at that age. But I feel like early 20s is a good place to start.
Can I just jump right to it? What was it that brought that level of awareness to your body story in your 20s? What shifted?
That is a very interesting question. And I don't think I could pinpoint one thing. I really don't. Um, Perhaps it would be that just as growing up and as our bodies change through different parts of our lifetime, maybe it was perhaps a more noticeable change for me, or as you get older too, and then having interactions whether not just your own gender, but other genders, the opposite sex, and people,
Mm.
commenting or saying things. It brings a heightened awareness to it, maybe things that you hadn't thought of before, or even paid attention to or noticed.
Mm. 20s. I remember my 20s. I was a late
So long
well,
ago.
it felt I was a late bloomer. I've shared this with a few other women on the interview, but I lost my virginity at 21. So I was a senior in college. So I really that kind of that discovery, that layer, like really diving into my sexuality at that age really did help me have a different connection with my body. And that was early 20s. Is there a specific story, like something very pivotal? Maybe something you experienced on your own, with a partner, out with friends, on the social scene, in privacy, that's just really highlights your story in your 20s when you think of your body.
Oh, yes. And so when I think back to my 20s, and if I had to kind of summarize how I was feeling about my body, gosh, I would just say my entire 20s was filled with simply disordered eating. My entire 20s. Um, and I just think of it as a very chaotic time. Myself trying to just get control or assert control over my body to do exactly what I wanted it to do.
Mm.
And at the same time, your body is just going to keep changing and kind of doing what it wants to do. And you can listen to it, and work with your body and have compassion and, roll with the punches and roll with change, or you can try to control it,
Mm.
and force things. And, I feel like that's where I was in my 20s, trying to force and control everything about my body.
My 20s, the evolution of both being my heaviest and then in my late 20s starting my fitness kick where I was just doing everything and saw my body completely transition just in a matter of a couple years. It was but all in the middle of that, Alexis, one word you mentioned, I was still doing control, still
Mm-hmm.
both controlling how I ate, what I ate, and then not having control at times. So, even in my 20s to see that transition, you're absolutely right. It's constantly transitioning. Were you aware of that in your 20s of the change? Or is this just something you're able to recognize now in your 30s?
I think it's definitely more perspective now, just looking back. I have been active my entire life.
Mm.
Like, I'm pretty sure in high school I was awarded the most athletic award.
Nice.
I not only had a sport every season, I had more than one sport if they would let me like kind of do halftime. I so I did it all. I was always super active. I ran like my first 10K when I was 9. I've
Girl, you
always
don't.
been into competitive running. Yeah, and the truth is, like, I come from a place of loving being active, and I know that's not everybody's experience with it. Often when I tell people I love running, they're like, "What do you love about it? That's
running,
awful."
running
Um,
where?
right? Yeah. Well, what are you running from? But truly in my soul, I love to be moving. I've always loved movement, activity. Um, and perhaps as a result of that, I don't think I was really ever aware of what my body looked like or what my weight was
Mm,
until probably when I got to college. And I was no longer,
mm,
I did run cross country when I was in college, but I wasn't as active. So certainly my body was changing. I was eating at the cafeteria at school, so I
yes.
didn't have control over like what I was eating, and just eating in more of like a social environment too, so not being as like mindful and paying attention. So um yeah, I'm certain that change happened then, and perhaps I wasn't aware of it at the time, but definitely looking back, for sure.
Can I ask, Alexis, did you find yourself in your 20s mainly around other people that were athletic as well or that had a level of body awareness? Was that something that you were keen on then at that time?
I actually, well, it was a mix. So I did have some friends that were also active, who I would see in the gym all of the time at school. And then I also had the friends who were like once a semester going and sitting on a bike or walking on the treadmill and really just watching TV. So it was, the whole gamut of people who were like really into it, and
Yeah.
other folks who were very, very casual and not excited to participate at all.
Alexis, it's transitioning a bit, but it makes me think of my 20s. I'm thinking of like social media that wasn't really popping a whole lot as much as it is now.
There wasn't
What,
anything.
was there a discussion, Alexis, about an ideal body type? Do you remember what that discussion sounded like among you and your friends, among things that you were hip to? How would you describe the ideal body type that maybe you were looking to at that age?
I think one of the problems with that is there was not necessarily a discussion. I do actually think that this might have been a an example of where social media and just a lot more inclusive voices sharing their stories may have actually been quite helpful. I definitely found that I was at a school surrounded by people who were just like me. So coming from like the same socioeconomic background, and obviously we were in school together, so we were attaining the same level of education. So I basically was going to school with people who were just like me. And I think the idea was always just there, maybe from magazines, I think, growing up. The thinner you were, the better. Like, I don't think there could be a thing of being too thin.
How do you see this now? Because even as I'm interviewing and saying using the language ideal body type, that actually triggers my entire body. Just saying that language because it's it's just so ideal body type. Ideal according to whom? So it's so funny that you say that like thin. I hear that when I was in my 20s, thinness might even look different from the way someone else sees thinness or uses the word skinny. It stunned me, Alexis, when my weight loss journey started and I was visibly losing weight when people would use the word thin to describe me. I could not. First of all, it didn't hit me, it didn't resonate with me. It's not how I felt in my body whatsoever. But that
Mm-hmm.
word thin, growing up, high school, teenage years, I have always associated with a white woman. So to hear the word thin used for me, it just did not resonate with me whatsoever. I'm curious about
Mm-hmm.
how the language of thinness and skinniness has played a presence in your circles, in your world, whether among other white women, your friends, because I know you have a very diverse group of friends. How is that word played in the body story when you talk to other women? Thin and skinny. How's that word played out?
It has definitely changed a lot. So I would say when I was in college in my 20s, and again, I was surrounded by people who were just like me. So white
Hmm.
women who honestly were all relatively thin based on what my perception was.
Hmm.
Like we could all wear about the same size. We shared clothes in college. Like,
Yeah.
we were literally like carbon copies of one another.
Mm.
So I felt like at that time there was likely an agreed on definition, whether we had like shared it or not. And that being that, like, you could borrow your friend's clothes and it was fine. Um, and, you know, I was going to say like later on, but I'm like, well, okay, now into my 30s, okay, into my later 30s. So speaking now,
Yeah.
I just love how much the dialogue has changed.
Mm.
I love that there is a dialogue. I love that it's changing. And I don't feel like people are using the word thin so much. I feel like perhaps now the focus, I'm not sure what the focus has shifted to. I was going to say like healthy or something around like wellness.
Because there is a
Um,
shift, Alexis. There
there
definitely is a
is.
shift. Yeah. And I just like, for me, this was years ago, but I remember walking into a Target store and seeing a mannequin, and it was like a full plus size model wearing clothes. I don't know why that did something for me. And I'm like, why am I getting so excited about seeing this? Because it's just not the norm because of what we've consistently seen. And that's another reason why this body story project was so critical. And I haven't interviewed, and I want to interview women from every type of background, Alexis, because I do feel the language of how we speak about our bodies, what we say, what we ascribe to is different based on where you're from culturally, what you see and what you know. Is there is there still, do you feel pressure? Is there still, like, as a woman in your body, where do you still feel these areas of just like awareness, maybe hypersensitivity or awareness when it comes to your body?
Yeah. So I've got a couple of points there. When
Okay.
you when you're talking about going into Target and finally seeing plus size mannequins, which really should just be like real normal size people, like
Exactly.
representations of what we are. Um,
Yes.
it's a very strange feeling for me. It actually, while I am aware that it's important. And when I think about, younger kids seeing that and just starting to get the language of, okay, this is just like what a person looks like, a body
Mm-hmm.
looks like, there is no ideal. Um, at the same time, it's not triggering to me, but it definitely takes me to a place of fear. And
What
I think
does?
to see mannequins and models that are of all shapes and sizes,
Ooh, tell me more.
it's very convoluted in my mind when I talk about this, but it's almost like somewhere in my mind, I am fearful that I will lose control and perhaps just look like another random body and stop trying to control what it is that I look like. And that is very scary, I would say, for someone who has dealt with disordered eating for so long. Like, letting go of control, or perhaps, when we go back and talk about that ideal, if that ideal no longer exists, if there is no
Mm,
longer an ideal, like,
mm,
what have I been doing, and where am I going to focus my control now, right? Because
mm.
if the disordered eating is about having control in some facet of your life, like, what am I going to do now?
Wow. Wow, Alexis. I've never heard it from that perspective before. So it's almost like somebody who uses like a template, like their guy, this template is kind of what they're on, and then the template's removed and they're like, blank canvas, start from scratch. And you're just like, where do I start? What am I ascribing to that? I've never heard it framed like that before.
Yeah, well, if you think about, if we don't introduce to kids, this ideal body image, and we don't talk to them about, you know, things that we see on their body, oh, you're gaining weight, oh, you're losing weight,
Mm-hmm.
positive and negative. If we
Yep.
just allowed everyone to live as they want, eat what they want, be active if they want, live a lifestyle that they want, we would be, again, we wouldn't be working towards some sort of ideal, and everyone would just do what they wanted, and that would be fine and acceptable, and people would be happy.
Yeah.
Um, but whenever we're working off of, some sort of template of what we're working to achieve, um, if we kind of like take that away, you're almost like, I don't know how to describe it. You're a little like lost and fearful. If in my mind I'm thinking, gosh, the last thing that I want to do is gain weight and
Mm-hmm.
assign to myself, like, I am fat, whatever that means to me.
Okay.
Like, now there's permission to do that. I don't know if that makes
Mm.
sense. And that
I
feels
can't tell you enough.
scary.
It makes a tremendous amount of sense because sometimes, Alexis, I can even feel hypocritical in my own body. Like when winter comes around, I can visibly see differences in my body because I'm eating more comforting food. Maybe I'm not outside and active as much. So I do find these quiet moments of judgment within myself. But if I was to be ascribing to what you're talking about right now, those moments wouldn't exist because sure I soften up a bit or something's a little looks different than it would during the summertime, but if I don't have this ideal that I'm aiming for, I would just be being. So the
Yeah.
hypocrisy where it comes into me is, especially as a health and wellness coach, I want people to just be. I want to just be and live in my moments and enjoy my life as it is. But I also see the importance of living a healthy life. The two to me go together, and movement is a part of that healthy life. Eating food that nourishes me is a part of that healthy life. So I think to get to kind of what to eliminate that fear as I hear how you're describing it, maybe that new ideal is just being as healthy as I can be, being as healthy as you can
Yeah.
be, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. If I wasn't going to the doctor and they were telling me that according to my BMI, I'm overweight, like, maybe I wouldn't have these thoughts.
Mm,
Like, if I didn't have,
mm,
if we didn't have metrics to measure ourselves up against, maybe we would make our own metrics, or maybe we would
mm.
just live a little freer.
What does that do for you? Knowing your history with your body story, Alexis, that freeness. How does that land with you right now when you think about just thinking of you and your body?
I can't imagine it. Honestly, I
Wow.
I've talked about this with Brian, with my husband, many, many times. And I just think that at some point in your life, like I do believe that people can change, but I just feel like what has been drilled into my brain, like I might adjust a little bit. I cannot imagine ever being completely free of it. Like I just feel poisoned. And while I might get a little bit healthier and let some of that toxic knowledge out of my body, there's always going to be something there.
What do you think, you being this honest and candid about this revelation that you're sharing right now, what do you think this is going to do for someone that might be listening? What might they take away from this, Alexis?
Well, I think if they are someone who has similar thoughts and ideas, and has, um, it's interesting. I was just going to say the words like struggled with weights,
Mm.
but like, is that what I've done? Or have I
Mm.
just tried to control my weight and make it what I want? Like, is that really the same thing?
Mm.
But anyway, someone who will just say perhaps is like having having trouble around their body image and not really loving their body just as it is. First, I hope that they realize that they are certainly not alone.
Yes.
And also maybe just to encourage them to, if they feel, and if they're brave enough to, because, it does require a little bit of bravery, talk to other people around them, open up in places where you feel like you're struggling or ashamed or embarrassed. Like, if you can share some of that and bring it to light, you might hear something in conversation that changes the course of your direction that you're going or your life.
Mm.
I feel like the most dangerous place that kind of our thoughts and judgment can live are in us. And I feel like the moment you bring that out into the light, you name it, you say it, that's really the only time that you can work on shifting it. If it's just living within you, I don't really think you can shift it or change it,
Mm.
because it's you're just working with what's in your brain, and that's not necessarily changing.
That's true. That's that shadow work, kind of pulling that darkness out, and just like no one else can call it out if you've called it out on your own, if you've unpacked
Yeah.
it and investigated it. Oh, there's so much power in bringing those dark shadows to the light. There really is. And really just a lightness off your shoulders. What's the part of your body you love the most? What do you appreciate most about your body that you just, maybe something you wear, Alexis? Maybe when you look at this part of your body, it's very easy and natural to say something sweet about it.
Hmm.
It can be from the crown of your head to the tip of your toe. What do you
Oh,
love and
Coco, you know that,
appreciate?
like, come on, as someone who has not really loved their body, me looking in the mirror is like I'd rather live in a house that didn't have mirrors. Like it is. And even this Zoom and being on video all the time, I'm like, oh, can I just not join with camera? But no, I've always really kind of loved like my legs and the strength that they've had. I've always
Mm.
been very proud of how strong I am, and being a runner, they always get me where I want to go. And for a long time, they got me there very fast. So I really appreciated that, and
That's
I was very proud of
nice.
how strong I was.
Mm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
maybe my legs.
Yeah, it's important. We gotta get rooted in what we love. It's so easy to like pull ourselves apart and analyze, but all of us, I really believe this, have at least one thing that we really love and appreciate about our bodies. And that's been a huge part of my body story, Alexis, is starting from there. Like, what do I love? And then just honoring that, whether it's looking at myself at nighttime when I get out the shower with the candle on so it can have that extra sexy glow, or just wearing
Yeah.
things that really accentuate and highlight that piece of me. It's just we have to start with what we're really loving and celebrate, and then just let it gradually grow. That has been a winner for me.
That's amazing. So it's so challenging because Brian would tell you that he just thinks that I'm so attractive and he thinks that I would look good in anything. And then if you had to compare, like, say I had 10 different outfits that you put me in and we looked at all 10 pictures lined up, I probably wouldn't find one that I was like, oh, I look really good in that. Oh, I look really good in that. And he
Mm,
would say, like, oh, you look good in all of those.
mm,
And it's just, I think it's really, yeah, it's just really hard for me. One place I do think that I've been successful. So I've had, you know this, I've had 2 spine surgeries, and I do feel like that was actually a turning point in my body story, because for the first time I appreciated what my body could do for me.
mm.
It was
Wow.
also a moment where, I didn't know what the future was. So would I be able to be active? Would I be able to do the same things that I could do before? And I really had to get real with myself and look at the possibility that I may never be able to be active again and what that might do to my
Mm.
body. Made me very grateful for any and everything that I could do after surgery. And just noticing how resilient my body was. Like, if I were my body after how I treated it for 35 years before that, I would have just like taken the train out of town and said, good luck, you know. But thankfully, my body was like, okay, I'm here for you. Like, I'm
Yes.
here for you.
Oh, Alexis, what a wonderful way to bring us back really full circle on the power of our bodies, because sometimes when we're in pain, and that's, I feel like after 30 you wake up and it's like something new is like, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
So I think through pain, as odd as that sounds, I am even leaning more into the love of my body through things that are like, it could be chronic, back pain, or learning. Even I went to a pelvic floor specialist to really learn how to relax my pelvic area. So when you have sometimes pain, you almost have to hug in a little closer to it and give that part even some extra love in. So I hear what you're saying. It's made, sometimes pain and recovery can help us fall in love and see our bodies and their resiliency. I agree with that
Yeah.
completely. Oh, wow. Is there anything, Alexis, that I didn't ask you about, or that you just feel like you would like to share? As we wrap up, I feel like it went so quickly, but I'm just very thankful for your honesty and vulnerability. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
I mean, currently I'm honestly at a moment in my life where I'm so grateful for the conversation through social media by
Mm,
one, not only people who are brave enough to talk about issues that they've had with their body image, whether it's in their mind or in their body, issues
mm,
that they've had, and also people who are kind of cultivating a new path in sharing that.
mm.
So, for example, maybe this is like still that spot of control where I'm researching and learning about something called reverse dieting.
Mm.
And basically, the idea is just that you eat enough for your body to thrive. Like, a very basic concept. Whereas,
Yes.
everything about dieting is restricting, cutting back,
Mm.
suffering, pain, all of that sort of stuff. And this is about more of nourishing your body to have enough energy to do the things that you want to do. So,
Oh,
however active you want to be, eating enough for that, not like not eating enough so that you can change what's going on in your body, rather eating enough so that you can do the activities that you want.
yes.
And I just think it's a great new direction.
Mm.
And maybe I'm just not following things anymore on social media that are all about like cutting and getting thin and
Oh,
all of that. Maybe
yeah.
I've had enough of that.
Yes.
I've had enough of that toxicity, and I see it and I know it, and I want to be as far away from it as I can. But
Wow.
I certainly appreciate just like the openness and the new dialogue and while I don't think I will ever be completely free of sort of like negative body image or whatnot, I'm happy with the path that I'm on.
I'm exhaling because I ditto 100% your last sentence. That's probably secretly why I have to do this. I know I'll never let go of some things, Alexis, the rest of my life. So this is my way of healing, is through hearing other women's stories and knowing it's going to change someone else's life. So I want to thank you so much. I really
Of
appreciate you.
course, just thinking, I'm always like, okay, when I get to the end of my days, hopefully I will be very old and have lived a very, very full life. Do I really want to think about my whole life being spent trying to control my body?
Mm,
Like, no, I want to think about all of the good memories, the parties that I went to, the great food that I ate, all of these experiences, rather than trying to like zap the joy out of living, just doing things that are fulfilling, eating foods that are fulfilling, doing activities that are fun, and you're not
yes.
beating yourself up or doing 3 workouts a day. Like, ooh.
Oh.
I'm trying to like write over those terrible memories of new ones so that when I look back, I do feel like, wow, yeah, like I spent my life doing things that were meaningful and fulfilling and not worried about what someone else thinks about my body.
Mm,
Like what a waste that would be.
girl, yes. Ain't nobody got time. Oh, Alexis,
Yeah,
thank you so much. Thank you so
of course.
much.
One last kind of just funny thing that I've done, not
Sure.
even funny thing, but that I've started to do, it is forever a problem for women walking down the street and mostly men just commenting, right? Cat calling, commenting on what you're wearing,
All the time.
whatnot. I have now, I now respond to them. And if somebody says something or, makes a sound or whatever, I just scream back at them, nobody asked you.
You do. How does that feel, Alexis?
So good, because
Oh,
I feel like so often we just feel like victims and that we have to like hear someone else's opinion about our bodies. Nobody
oh,
asked you.
yeah. I've
So
yelled out, mind your own business. I've yelled that out. I mean, just, and it can just be in that moment because that, I know we're kind of switching gears, but to that, it's like my thinking is you were bold enough to feel that that was your place to say that. So you going to be bold enough to hear my response. And because
yeah,
it's just,
yeah,
you know what I mean? I get it, Alexis. So I like that you've taken something that drives all of us crazy and found a little humor in
yeah.
it because it ain't going to stop. But
No, it's
Alexis,
not.
thank you, hun. I appreciate you so much.
Of
And
course.
I can't wait to see how this story has an impact on someone's life.
Well, thank you, and thank you for asking me to share this. I really, I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.